Growing up in Australia, I saw firsthand the suffering inflicted upon Indigenous communities trying to make it in an evolving world. I continued to volunteer in Nepal, Kenya, and Laos, where I worked with communities all over the world where people are taken advantage of and exploited because they don't have other opportunities to overcome poverty. And to this day, I've continued to find ways to help fight for these underserved communities. My name's Ruby Rose, and I'm an actor and an activist, and I'm also very proud to be welcomed into the Rebel family. Who is Rebel? Rebel is a beverage company with a really unique story. It was founded by a nonprofit called Not for Sale, with a mission to fight human trafficking worldwide. Human trafficking is the fastest growing illegal industry in the world. It's a $150 billion business annually. 80% of trafficking victims are women and children. The fact that Rebel, a for-profit company, is taking on this huge problem made it an obvious choice to jump on board and support. So I hope that this story inspires you. Come close, gather round, and you shall learn, friends. Just a short trip to where it all started in the Peruvian Amazon.
The lush forests and jungles of the Peruvian Amazon are known as the lungs of the earth, drawing down carbon from the atmosphere. Yet it is constantly under threat of continued deforestation. And that's a challenge because without this carbon sink, the ability for the planet to reduce carbon from the atmosphere is greatly reduced. This Peruvian Amazon is incredibly unique. It's one of the most ecologically rich and diverse places on the entire planet. Yet the people that live here are some of the poorest.
Many of these communities are located upriver, 4 or 5 hours away from the nearest city by canoe. They don't have access to so many of the things that we just simply take for granted in the westernized world, like healthcare or education or access to economic opportunity. Because it is one of the richest natural areas in the entire world, that's also the reason it's been so exploited. In the late 1800s, during the rubber boom, these communities were exploited pretty drastically. They were enslaved to farm and harvest rubber. They've never really recovered from that. There was some irreparable damage that was done. The companies who are here now doing the illegal gold mining and the logging are just taking advantage of that situation, and they're just so vulnerable to trafficking.
Las chicas y chicos de las comunidades nativas salen a las ciudades y ven cosas que nosotros no estábamos acostumbrados a esto. Y las chicas y chicos cuando no están preparados son captados fácilmente por, que le llaman esto, trata de personas, ocurre eso, ¿no? Hay un montón de casos que las chicas y chicos se van, por ejemplo, a la minería y en la minería ocurre todo, prostitución, explotación. Y cuando el chico o chica indígena no está preparado, pues es sometido a muchas cosas, ¿no?
Not for Sale works around the world to combat human trafficking and the conditions that lead people to be so vulnerable to trafficking. And so we found out in Peru that there were a number of kids living in the streets of Lima. So we started a shelter here. And then we began to go upstream and we said, okay, let's now look for ways we could support the communities where these kids come from in the Amazon region. We could provide immediate relief, immediate aid, but it wouldn't be a solution to their problems.
I decided to bring together the 50 smartest people I knew, the 50 most influential and successful people. They came up with an idea I knew nothing about. They said, what if we made a drink created from the rich herbs of the Amazon? And we brought it to the market in the United States.
Right. So, a non-profit with a mission to end human trafficking creates a healthy tea company. A former venture capitalist pulls together a bunch of the smartest people he knows across industries to brainstorm business ideas that can actually create sustainable economic opportunity in this region. The thesis behind this is that when people have economic opportunity, they are less vulnerable to exploitation. Unlike many products with a mission, Rebel is a product of the mission to eradicate the root causes of human trafficking.
Puerto Maldonado is a town about 40 miles west of Bolivia, and it's known as the entrance or gateway to the Peruvian Amazon for researchers, biologists, and scientists from all over the world. We came down with a crew of people from both Rebel and Not For Sale. Dave, who is the co-founder of Rebel and the co-founder of Not For Sale. Jess, who's our global sourcing manager here at Rebel. Tara, who heads up operations for Not For Sale. And Danny, who is the impact manager at Rebel, along with myself, Rusty. Rebel started as a tea company with the intention of helping to create economic empowerment in these very communities here in the Peruvian Amazon. We have since evolved into a super herb adaptogenic beverage company that creates over 20 different products. And some of those products actually use the Brazil nuts that we source from these very communities. We wanted to trace the origin and see firsthand the source of our ingredients. We wanted to spend time with these communities and get to know the positive impact the Brazil nut is having on these communities.
Estamos en la comunidad de Boca Pariamano. Aquí vivimos nosotros. Mi nombre es Hanna Inés del Castillo Ramírez. De todo, a la agricultura me dedico, a la crianza. En las castañas anual nomás se cosecha eso. Nosotros nos vamos en febrero, ya ha caído ya toda la castaña. Porque no podemos entrar cuando está cayendo, nos cae a la cabeza, pues, ¿no? Y le juntamos en mes de febrero, marzo ya ha caído ya. Lo juntamos y nos vamos a meternos a la canasta. Y después ya le barriqueamos, después lo chancamos, lo sacamos los coquitos. La castaña es un coco duro, un redondito son pues. Sabe tener su truco para chancarle. 3 chancadas ya está abierto ya. La castaña para mí es una fruta muy querida. Se come diario uno, es como 3 comiendo un huevo. Tiene vitamina, bastante vitamina tiene la castaña. El lado de la castaña es alto, no tiene ramas, alto es él. La castaña crece años, de 20 años está produciendo recién. Es alto, arriba es coposito. Ahí están los cocados. Y no muere, es años, produce. Años de años. Nosotros le conservamos a eso, no lo matamos.
Brazil nuts are incredibly nutritious and so delicious. They are high antioxidants, they're really good for your brain, and they're immune boosters. Brazil nuts are really unique in that they require an intact rainforest to thrive. You can't cultivate them in an orchard or a plantation, and that really incentivizes the protection of the rainforest. The economic success of the Brazil nut really counters the international pressures to convert the rainforest into livestock pastures, mines, and plantations. In essence, the Brazil nut is really one of the few products that helps preserve the rainforest.
Rebel sources Brazil nuts from indigenous communities in Peru, where these communities wild harvest from the Amazon rainforest. After years of having members of their community trafficked and their resources exploited, these communities partnered to form Afimad, a collective of Brazil nut harvesters to fight against this exploitation and to claim fair prices.
La castaña es un recurso que tenemos estas 7 comunidades nativas y la economía gira en torno a la castaña, la principal economía. En este tiempo como castañero sufrí varias decepciones, ¿no?, con la extracción de la castaña.
Esto es así, se abre, entonces para que lo agarre, le hincas al coco y lo agarra y te lo echas pues ahí. Entonces ya no lo haces con la mano.
Nosotros vulnerables en el tema de vender nuestros productos porque no tenemos dinero, capital. Entonces teníamos que vender a cualquier precio. Todas las comunidades nativas castañeras sufríamos todas estas formas de negocio, ¿no?, con comerciantes, y muchas veces incumplían y nos engañaban. Entonces no era justo esto. Nació esta idea de tener una institución para administrar la castaña de todas las comunidades.
Hoy día Las comunidades castañeras están organizadas en la Asociación Forestal Indígena de Madre de Dios y cooperan mutuamente para poder tener una economía que les permita a ellos sostener a sus familias, pero también a sostener a la organización, que es muy importante.
El hermano David dice, tiene toda la razón, que está cambiando, está
Sí.
mejorando, poco
Sí.
a poco, ¿no?
Poco a poco,
Es el
sí.
proceso.
Primero una escuelita, ¿no?
Ahí está.
Una escuelita aquí. When we first came here, their children didn't have a school, and they were easily taken advantage of by traffickers and other people who exploited them for their labor.
Y ustedes vieron cómo estábamos trabajando con muchas dificultades. Nos han donado una canoa y su motor. Esta movilidad ha sido sumamente importante porque me ha permitido trasladar las castañas de las comunidades a Puerto Maldonado.
We were able to provide a boat for that. Now they have 4 boats, and they were able to take that on themselves. So what we saw was that we were essentially providing seed funding to these communities. We were injecting capital in the right places so that they were able to take that capital and do what they needed to do to create a future for themselves. What's even more incredible is that 2 of these communities have elected female leaders. This is something that we wouldn't have seen even 5 years ago here. And it's part of a bigger global shift that's happening everywhere, where we're listening to people and we're treating everyone with respect and allowing people to step into their own dignity.
The relationships that Nupsal has with the communities and Rebel is a lot messier than you'd like it to be. I'd love, from the very beginning when we came up with the idea of Rebel, that we could just come down, find the ingredients, pay the communities, make the beverage, and everything's great. The problem is supply chain is very complex. And so it has taken us 8 years of development to work with these communities and their capacity, in the ways that they process their resources, really their overall ability to work in a larger economy. It's taken us 8 years to get them to the place where now they can sell Brazil nuts. Now they can start to develop cacao or chocolate for the market. I guess it was more complex than we ever thought it would be, but that's what's so important about a long-term commitment both Not for Sale and Rebel have had to these communities.
El avance del trabajo con AFIMAD ha sido muchísimo. Ahora ya tenemos chacras, tenemos sistemas agroforestales que nos ayudan en nuestra economía. Pero a pesar de todo esto, aún faltan muchas cosas todavía.
One of the things that was most shocking to me when I began learning about human trafficking was how it is in every industry. It is not just sex trafficking and prostitution like many people think it is, but instead it can touch everything.
Modern day slavery is the fastest growing illegal industry of our time. Now sit with that for a moment. Today, there are more humans enslaved in the world than at any other time in history. 45.8 million people are affected by modern slavery. That's more people than the entire population of California, Canada, or Argentina.
So many businesses today are aware that human trafficking exists and that it might be somewhere in their supply chain.
The supply chain is really the path an ingredient takes to get to you. I think of it in the sense of from the soil to our drink. I can source Brazil nut butter and know it's coming from Bolivia, but I don't have transparency down to the community level.
Because our economy now is so globalized and we don't have this direct contact and knowledge of every single person who's part of a supply chain, there's so much that can be hidden from our view, and there's room for people to take advantage of that.
There's a eagerness that everyone wants to see something happen immediately, and they want to start checking boxes and feeling like we're having this impact that we all care so deeply about. But the reality of it is, it's going to be a lot more complicated than that, and a lot of listening and learning. That's kind of where we're at right now, is having dialogue with our suppliers who we buy our 70, 80 plus ingredients from, and learning more about where they're at and what their perspective is, so that we can understand situations on the ground in the grower communities, and then start to think about how we can support and have the positive influence and impact that we would like to have.
One of the reasons that I'm really excited about this project is that we have traceability all the way to the community.
For me, it always comes back to the relationships, to the individuals I know, and I keep visiting.
It's just so different to be here firsthand and meet the people, the castañeros that are harvesting the Brazil nuts. You can't have those conversations and dialogue and understand if you're sitting at a desk in California.
Yo soy Carolina. Carolina, trabajo en Caronut.
Oh, great.
Avoiding the camera.
Yes.
Básicamente a lo que hago acá en mi trabajo es encargarme de la cadena de valor de la Brazil Nuts. Estamos aquí localmente. No es un negocio de teléfono o de broker.
3 days drying, we pack again, okay, and we send to the facility for the cracking thing. These are the nuts ready to go to facility after dry here at the warehouse, and those are the how they arrive here, how they come. So it's very manual, very slow thing.
Conocer desde el origen, desde qué poblaciones nativas, qué proveedores castañeros nos conocemos. Hay una relación, una confianza. Entonces, creo que esta es quizás la diferencia de no somos gente que está de paso, ¿no? Hay una relación sincera y honesta ya.
Our partners here in Peru are really working to establish an interface between the native communities and the global market.
Cuando conocí al equipo Rebel, conectamos muy rápidamente, porque fue como ver a gente de tu misma tribu. Y fue como un amor a primera vista. La verdad que fue muy, muy bonito. Yo no he visto muchas empresas como Rebel viniendo directamente a la fuente a interesarse por los recolectores, por el producto, por el impacto que tienen. El hecho de que los ejecutivos de Rebel vengan acá a las comunidades a hablar con la gente, esto ya dice mucho de esto. Mucha gente puede decir, bueno, it's business, ¿no? Es negocios, comprar y vender, pero realmente la disruptividad creo que es el contacto real con las comunidades.
The impetus and inspiration for starting Rebel was, how do we reinvent social movement? How do we reinvent social change? How do you reinvent charity? Now it's come to an evolution where Rebel is like, well, how do you reinvent business?
We know that if we are to survive and thrive on the planet, we have to make changes. And businesses that are implementing things like regenerative agriculture or conscious business practices are really going to help us make the right differences. You know we don't have all the answers, but we're willing to take risks in what we do, and definitely are looking at more than just the bottom line.
There's a lot we have to unlearn, rather than coming in with this idea of, I know exactly how we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do it the most efficient, speedy way possible, so we quickly get to the destination. But I think there's so much that's lost in that process, and oftentimes that's other people's voices.
I think we're so jaded by commerce that we've come to the place where we feel like it can't do any good, but it's only about making money. And we need a new generation of entrepreneurs who really show these models that are effective, and people who otherwise might have gone into the peace work, or they might have created a water system in Rwanda as a volunteer activity. I really challenge my own students at university, think of that as your career. What would it be like you could pursue the dreams you have for designing the world into a day-to-day career? What would that look like? And I think there's a generation ready for that. Because we're so used to being disappointed by companies who put profit before people. They put margin ahead of environment.
The connection between a healthy beverage and soil fertility has to do with that regenerative way of being. And what that means is thinking about the system that you're interacting with and all of the relationships within that system. So one piece over here is our brand Rebel and the drinks that we make, and one piece over here is the earth and the soil that's producing our ingredients. Regenerative business, in a nutshell, is the evolution of business as usual through corporate social responsibility to something new, something really modeling nature and really thinking through the lens of an ecosystem to be renewing. It's not limitless growth and scaling. It's more, what's the right way to grow and in what ways that are actually going to be serving to this ecosystem.
Indigenous community members, castañeros, gather the Brazil nuts after they've dropped to the forest floor. They crack the cocos while they're still in the rainforest and collect the 12 to 24 Brazil nuts that are inside. As members of Afimad, the collective aggregates the Brazil nuts and takes them to their processing partner Candor. Candor agrees to purchase the nuts at a fair quality price. They coordinate the shelling and packing of Afimad's nuts, all while maintaining traceability to the harvesters, the castañeros. Candor ships the nuts to Rebel, who then blend with unicorn horn shavings, hopefully not because that would make it not vegan, fairy dust, and, well, honestly, whatever else they put in those elixirs that make it taste so good. So good. Anyway, I'm sorry. And then Rebel ships it to your local supermarket. When a consumer buys Rebel, 1% of profits are donated directly back to Not For Sale to help the communities build further infrastructure and thrive. These regenerative business practices are an example of the shift from only valuing shareholders to valuing all stakeholders in the system. I don't know about you, but that's quite different to how I've pictured the business world in the past. Business starts doing well and selling more product. They get pressure from the shareholders to drive costs down and profits up. And so begins the death spiral of finding ways to pay less. This typically means finding cheaper ingredients that compromise quality and have little regard for the environmental or social impact. Also, to pay less for labor, leading to exploitation and people not being paid fair wages.
A business can learn from nature. We have this incredible, immeasurable value, right? Like nutritious, organic, pure food, healing medicine really is coming this way. And what are we giving back in return? Business as usual does not answer that question outside of just dollars and cents. And that's where the relationship piece comes back in for us. It's asking that question and it's listening and thinking about how we actually set that system up differently so that it is more collaborative and cooperative.
La naturaleza es lo que crece solito, pues. Comemos natural, no tiene nada de químicas. Se siente energía, se siente fuerte, siento más vivir. Para mí esa es la naturaleza. Para que le consumas tienes que hablarlo, limpiarlo, su bajo, hablarlo. Los abuelos antiguos han dicho que las plantas del monte tienen su madre que les cuida. Ajá. Por eso le habla, se lo pide. Pe.
Los pueblos indígenas siempre han tenido la relación con el bosque. El bosque es nuestra casa, el bosque es nuestra farmacia, el bosque es nuestro mercado. Aquí en este jardín botánico tenemos 30 variedades de plantas, como son el matico, ajosacha, quión, la tangarana, el huasaí, pergonzacha, el parapara, que es una planta viagra natural, la ayahuasca, la sanipanga, el cordoncillo. No necesitamos casi el puesto de salud. Casi se cierra el puesto de salud también porque no necesitamos pastillas.
The ancient ways of using plants and herbs as medicine has been incredibly inspiring to us. Herbs and plants and adaptogens can function in more than just one way. You know, not just you eat or consume an ingredient and it does something for your body. What's really unique about adaptogens and super herbs are that they can do many things. They can help your body harmonize. If you're stressed, they can help you relate to stress. If you need energy, they can help your body get energy.
I have about 600 photos of Jess from the last 4 days touching dirt. Wherever we go, the first thing she does is grab the dirt and just smell it and just wants to understand, what is this? What's going on here? What is the soil and what is growing from it?
Oh, I love soil. I love the smell, the texture. You can feel if it's sandy or clay. You can feel how much organic matter is in there. I really need to truly understand what our dollar is doing on the ground. Like, break one open and smell it. It's like potent.
Smells.
Sé que no vamos a poder trabajar todo esto hasta lograrlo, pero es un gran avance. Y ya son 8 años, hemos avanzado. Cada comunidad se ha instalado con cacao, plátano y otras plantas, ¿no? Un sistema agroforestal. Ahora ya están vendiendo plátano, lo que antes compraban plátano. Es increíble. Las chacras que ahora tenemos esta planta que está por terminarse.
Places they're going to store Brazil nuts. It'll be like a warehouse so that all the communities will bring their Brazil nuts here. It's kind of the next stage towards having this cooperative.
Ese va a ser el puerto donde cuando viene la castaña por río en canoas se va a desembarcar ahí y se viene acá.
9 years ago, when Afimad and Afro first looking at the strategy, it was like, you know what, we're losing so much. An intermediary comes with his boat and he buys all of it for so cheap. Now what, we have our own boats, we have our own port. It's so fun to watch this evolution.
The Rebel story is just way too big to put onto the back of a bottle. We have a lot to say as a brand, from the passion we have for people and the planet to the magic of the plant queendom. What the heck's an adaptogen in super herb? There's so many things that we want to talk about, and we just can't fit all of that onto the back of a bottle.
This is Rebel's origin story. It is also just one story about one ingredient, the mighty Brazil nut. Rebel sources over 70 organic ingredients from 30 communities around the world. Each ingredient and each community has its own unique story. Together, these ingredients, these stories create Rebel. This is a chance for us to understand how our purchasing decisions can make an impact. Whether you're a company like Rebel, sourcing ingredients from communities around the world, or just busy, on the go, and looking for health products at the market. This story explores the impact that Rebel has made in one region of the Amazon thus far, and highlights how important yet challenging this work can be.
La Amazonía es fundamental para la existencia humana. Ahora sabemos bien eso, entonces tenemos que cuidar, concientizar, saber, prepararnos y ser conscientes de lo que somos, de dónde vivimos y cómo podemos mitigar todo este daño que se ha ocasionado.
Al mundo moderno, la sabiduría que yo sé. Y yo quisiera, ¿verdad?, que sí aprenda para que no solamente en mi país o la selva estemos sanos, a todo el mundo, pues, no se pierda esa sabiduría que tenemos. Yo quisiera, ¿verdad? Ajá, sería muy bueno, muy bueno.
People want products that are doing good. And if it wasn't so hard, I really feel like people would be using their dollar to vote every time. But we don't have that. We don't provide that information to people generally. I think Rebel's really trying to do that differently. Like, we're trying to tell the story that we're making conscious choices on our supply chain to do good and to leave the world in a better place.
I think people have a hard time understanding that you wouldn't want to do things in just the absolute easiest way, even if it means hurting other people. And I get to work for an organization and with other people for whom it's worth the time, it's worth the effort, it's worth being wrong a lot, it's worth taking a long time to listen and learn so that we can try to find a different path.
We are being very transparent about the way we do business for very specific reasons. If we are going to thrive and survive on this planet, we are going to have to make some very serious changes. Businesses that are implementing things like regenerative business or truly embracing conscious capitalism should be recognized and rewarded for doing so. Consumers need to demand this change. Businesses, stakeholders, shareholders, and others need to drive this change. It is the only way that we will survive.
We could be the healing when you're feeling all alone. We can be the reason to find the strength to carry on. In a world that's so divided, we shall overcome. We can be the healing. We can be the flower in the gun. We can be the healing. We could be the flower in the gun.
What could I say to my son or to my daughter if they came and asked me about these days? What kind of reason could I give for all the hate that's standing in the way? Wish I could tell them that nobody's gonna judge them, and every stranger on the block is gonna love them. No bully in the world could ever hurt them, but I can't say that today. No, no one could ever take your pride from you. Speak your truth and let your spirit fly, 'cause we could be the healing when you're feeling all alone. We could be the reason to find the strength to carry on. In a world so divided, we shall overcome. We could be the healing. We could be the flower in the gun. We could be the healing. We could be the flower in the gun.
That calls for a mic drop. Rebel mic drop.
What could I say to every
yeah.
girl who was betrayed and told to keep the pain locked inside? Wish I could say nobody's